Have you ever thought of buying a franchise or currently own one or many? If so, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Franchise Euphoria, the podcast created and hosted by franchise attorney Josh Brown for the sole purpose of helping people find success through franchising.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Franchise Euphoria, the podcast to help buyers, owners, and expansion-minded businesses find success through franchising. Today I am thrilled to have Brenton Hayden on the show. Brenton is the CEO and founder of Renters Warehouse. Renters Warehouse is Minnesota's largest residential property management company. They help people lease and rent their residential properties. They help find tenants, manage tenants, collect the rent, coordinate maintenance, essentially becoming a landlord for the property. They have enjoyed tremendous success with this model, so much so that they are now franchising it across the United States. We will certainly dive into this and many other things during the interview, but first and foremost, hello, Brenton, and welcome to the show.
Hello, Josh. Real pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to share our unique story.
Well, yeah, thrilled to hear about it. We've got a lot to cover in this episode, and I'm really excited to dive in. But I'd like to just start at the beginning and have you tell us how you got into the residential property management space.
You know, I worked for a big, actually Fortune 200 company called Kellogg's, a cereal company. And I sold cookies and crackers for them for quite a while. And I wouldn't say too long, but I had great success there. And this was around 2005, 2006. I never thought that I was great at sales, but I realized when I was put in a sales job, I did very well. In fact, I was the top performing sales representative at Kellogg's in the Midwest. Won all kinds of awards and whatnot. So I had an innate knack for sales. And when that job was no longer available due to corporate downsizing, somebody told me the only way to replace my income and to accommodate my specific skill sets was to get into real estate. If you recall, 2005, 2006, this was a really, really peak high time in real estate. Values were at all-time high. Money was the easiest you could get. And real estate was booming. So I found my way into real estate. I went and got my license. I later researched and worked for the top real estate agent in town. And I took a very entry-level job with him as a buyer's agent on a salary of about $30,000 a year. I just wanted to learn the business. And that was my first venture into real estate. And if you know much about real estate, when you're a real estate agent, you're kind of like an entrepreneur, because you're an independent contractor with a brokerage that you license his or her name or value proposition. Well, that was kind of my first entrepreneurial venture, because I didn't have cookies and crackers that kind of sold themselves at Kellogg's. I had buyers and sellers that, weren't necessarily certain that they should do business with me. And so I had to go out and earn trust, earn their business, and create a rapport with these people. And that was kind of my first venture into being my own boss. I knew that I had to wake up each morning and nobody was telling me to do that. I had to work late and nobody was asking me to do that either. You just kind of had that tenacity or willingness to do that. And I found I was willing to do that. In fact, I was willing to go well beyond an extra mile. When that gentleman I worked for decided he was going to start his own brokerage, and I said, "Oh, that's a great idea." Because I had been telling him about property management. As his buyer's agent, I'd been talking to a lot of buyers, and they said, "I need help finding rentals." Nobody was really helping them. And as I was talking to sellers, they would also be saying, "Well, I need somebody to help rent my rental." Nobody was really helping them either. But at the brokerage we were at the time, they said no to property management. So when John decided to go out on his own, I said, "John, this is a great opportunity to capitalize on a big market here. We should start a little property management division or a leasing division inside your new brokerage." He thought that was a dumb idea. He thought that we should just stay focused on real estate and that property management was just a niche, small thing, and not to spend my effort or my time on it. Well, I didn't agree. And I thought this was a big opportunity. So I decided to go out on my own. I started my own real estate brokerage at that time, and I set out on a mission to help people rent and manage their residential real estate. And with very little money and very little experience, I put together a business, and I started cold calling people out of the Sunday paper, because if you were trying to rent your property in the Sunday paper, you were the client I wanted to go after, because oftentimes you were struggling to get a rental because you were kind of stuck in the old way rental properties were being rented. Nowadays, properties were being rented online, Trulia, Zillow, rentals.com, and this was where people were going to get virtual tours, pictures, see the property on a map before having to drive by and see it from a classified ad. So I started there. I had great success. The first 3 phone calls I made, people hung up on me. The 4th phone call I made, I met this old school investor who gave me 6 properties to rent. I rented them very, very quickly. And next thing you know, he started referring me to everybody in his real estate investing group, and there began the story that is one of America's, well, we're now the 2nd largest property management company in America, and that is where the story began just 6.5 years ago.
I mean, that's an incredible story, and it's fascinating to me because here you come from a background in more of the traditional real estate side and traditional sales, and you see this opportunity to almost reinvent an industry. And it's not really a sexy business. I wouldn't call it that, but it's a necessary business, and it almost seems like it's a business of convenience in large part. I mean, did you find that first gentleman who gave you that opportunity is really a matter of, hey, he was probably looking at it like he could have somebody that it was worth his time, worth his money to have somebody else go out and do the legwork on getting the property rented?
It was a value proposition at the time. I told him, I said, you have nothing to lose. I charge you nothing up front. I don't need a contract. You can cancel at any time. And all I'm asking is, will you allow me to market your property? And if so, if I find you a tenant that you would approve of, would you agree to pay me a fair commission? I said, if you find your own tenant, great. Call me, cancel. Won't cost you a thing. But give me the opportunity to show you what my marketing of a rental property could do. And at the time, that was the only value proposition I had. Now, we can guarantee the rent. We warranty our tenants for 9 months. We can protect the homeowner and the tenant against $100,000 worth of property damage. We cover homeowners against the costs associated with an eviction. We have the fastest leasing market in the business. We now have the largest marketing exposure of single-family homes in America by putting, through our sophisticated software we later developed, we can now put a home on 230 websites. So while it is a convenience, we are of great value. For about $80 a month, you get access to my team of 130 people, if we just talk about Minnesota, that are professional landlords. That means instead of you doing this nights and weekends or after work or in between you buying the next investment property, you don't have to do the management anymore. You can hire a team of 130 people to be your professional landlord for a very nominal amount. Now, what this all means is you get great service for a great value, you get great accountability, and oftentimes I'm going to create more efficiencies in your rental property, which will lead to higher income, lower maintenance costs, better quality tenants. And with my risk-reducing services like being able to guarantee the rent, the eviction costs, and warranting our tenants, it's almost a no-brainer now to hire a professional landlord that is Renter's Warehouse than to do it on your own, because if you factored in what you pay yourself, it's really not that much. For about the price of your daily latte at Starbucks or less, you get my team of professional landlords to manage what are oftentimes people's biggest financial investments.
Now,
I wanted to kind of make a contrasting story. Many people could do things on their own. If you look at, many people do their own taxes, but it's recommended to use a CPA. I like to use this analogy. If you were sick and you needed surgery, would you do it yourself or would you hire a doctor? There are crazy stories about people doing it on their own, but it doesn't mean it's a good idea. We're promoting the benefit of a professional property manager because of this. Oftentimes people buy a business and they expect that business to have proven processes and systems in place before they would buy it. But not so much when they buy real estate. People buy real estate oftentimes and they treat it as a hobby, when really it should be treated as a business. And by hiring a company like us, we treat your property as a business, and there's big pros and benefits to that.
Now, did you always know that you wanted to build this up into a larger company? I'm always reminded, I don't know if you read any of Seth Godin's blog or his books or anything, but he likes to talk about how, people need to make a decision when they're starting a business, whether they're more of a freelancer or an entrepreneur. And his definition of that would be, a freelancer is more somebody who's going to leverage technology and do it themselves. They don't want to have a large scale organization, where a true entrepreneur really wants to build up a business. And they're both businesses, but actually a more structured business with more people. Did you always know when you started Renter's Warehouse that you wanted to build this up into a larger organization?
I'd love to tell you that I had a great business plan and a big idea when I started, but you know what, Josh? I didn't have any of that. I just needed to make a living, and I saw an opportunity, and I thought I would be good at it. That's really all it was. Now, later today, we're a sophisticated, complicated, large business. But for the first 2 or 3 years, I just went to work and I worked hard. I just did. I didn't want to be about it. I wanted to do it. I wore every hat in the business. I learned it from the ground up. I had never done property management before. I was 21 when I started the business. I actually hid myself from customers because I was so young. I thought, why would they trust me to manage their biggest real estate investment? Because what the hell do I know? So I became very secretive and very behind email. And you never really got to know me, but my reputation preceded me. I was good at what I did, but I bet you if people would have known how young and inexperienced and how unorganized I was, you might have not have given me that chance. But those that did, they thrived, and those that thrived, they referred me. And today we still continue to have a very good reputation. I didn't have a big idea. There's a really great book, Josh. Have you ever read it? It's called Rework.
No, I've never read it.
You got to read it. In fact, I'll send you a copy. It is my favorite book. It was about year 3 in my business that I read this book, and it revolutionized what I was thinking, doing, and operating my business, because they have chapters in there like planning is guessing. Forget throw a budget and a performance. What do you need that for? And how stupid is fail fast, fail often? What do you really learn when you fail? What not to do again? Well, what's that really worth? Learn from people's successes. Underdo the competition. ASAP is poison. Meetings are toxic. These are all chapters of that book, and they put things into perspective in the modern day operational system of business. And you know what? Most people are struggling to start their own business because they're scared to make the jump. I wasn't scared to make the jump, and I didn't even know what the hell I was doing. I just knew that when I apply myself, like sports or anything else I've done in my life, I'm committed and I'm good at it. And if I wasn't, I was going to be honest with myself. And frankly, if you're going to start a business, you just got to go and do it. If you think there's always going to be a perfect time and the right amount of money in the flawless business plan, you're a fool. Every business has problems. Every business is usually undercapitalized. And the guy who founded it usually started out with no idea what the hell he was doing. He was just throwing things out there and see what sticks. And when you find something that sticks, then you optimize it and you make it better. That's my story. And I would tell you there's a better way to doing that, but you don't need to do what the books tell you with all these plans and performas and have all these things in a row. You don't. You just need to go and do. And the people who can go and do with those risks in place usually have great passion. And that's one of those keys you need to start a business.
No, I love your straightforwardness in talking about this, because I think so often I find, and I know you find, that, people, well, there's two things. People either overcomplicate things and they think they have to have every single thing worked out, when the reality is it's impossible to know until you just do.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one thing. The other thing is, I think sometimes entrepreneurs try to get there too quickly. In other words, they try to skip over the necessary steps or the hard work that is to understand every aspect of your business. There's simply no skipping over that. You could have had the best plan in the world. You could have said, hey, I'm going to go ahead and hire this person. But if you didn't have a true understanding of what was entailed in that business, if you didn't understand each and every job, I would venture to say things would have gotten lost in the shuffle. Because you just truly, there's no substitution for getting in there and understanding every aspect of your business, and then building the systems, and then building the processes to take it to the next level.
I refer to that, and I've always referred when I started the business, I had lots of problems, lots of issues, lots of things to figure out, lots of things that didn't go well and did go well. And I always imagine yourself on a circular track, and you're a runner. And when you start the business in the beginning, about every other step is a hurdle, and you got to jump over it. And it gets hard when you got to jump over a hurdle every other step. But the longer you're in business, the further those hurdles start to get up far. In the beginning, you're running out of money. You need more marketing dollars. You don't have enough clients. You have one crazy client that's really ruining your business. You have one bad review. You have tons of stuff that you're figuring out for the first time, and it's just like you can't get a break. You're always jumping over hurdles. And that's why the barrier to entry of starting your own business is hard. And that's why very few people succeed, because they don't have the tenacity to drive through that.
Well, I think the number one resource the number one thing that entrepreneurs possess, and I always talk about it, is resourcefulness.
Yep.
Persistence, yep. Resourcefulness, being able to figure things out on the fly. Can you tell me when you, after you were doing and working the business for, I think you said 2 or 3 years, what was that like for you when you went from essentially doing it yourself to now bringing in more people and really kind of help the listeners understand that challenge? Because I hear that a lot. There's a big challenge in, it's one hurdle to actually make the jump and start your own business. Then it's a whole nother challenge to start letting other people in to come help you, because you realize your own limitations, or you realize that your opportunity is so much greater if you have other people helping you.
Well, when I first started hiring people, I was, a 21-year-old that had no line of credit or no investment in the business. I started it with $3,000. And so for me to hire an employee, it wasn't possible for many months and even almost the first year. I needed to make a living. I also needed to, wear many hats as a result. But when we did start to have the revenue enough to support employees, we hired 1 or 2. But I'll tell you what, for the first 2 years I was in business, I didn't exceed an income of $31,000. And there were many times that I had to skip payroll for myself in order to make payroll for my 1, 2, or 3 employees. And I probably could have paid myself a lot more. In fact, I know I could have. But I took the profits my company was making and I doubled down or reinvested in my business, or in the form of incremental advertising, mainly advertising. If I took $5,000 a month and put it into advertising and it came back in $10,000, I'd take that $10,000 and put it into advertising and come back in $20,000. And I just kind of kept doing that. And I would delay or defer my income, knowing that one day I could stop deferring it and take some of that profit and maybe make it a big chunk. As a young man with very little debt, I was able to live very meager. And so I was in a great position to start a business and reinvest all the money into the business. And I also, when I hired people, I told them about my passion and my vision and where I was going, and I asked them to join in on my mission, and that I needed them to make some sacrifices, and if they were willing to ride this crazy ride with me, they'd be employee number 1, 2, or 3, and we could be laughing about this in 5 years from now, what it looks like. And I think 3 of the 5 original 5 employees I had are still with me today, and they're either C-levels or vice presidents or above in my business. And so they were willing to take a chance on me. And frankly, I just had to be honest with them. I said, I know you're worth $55,000 a year, but I can only pay you 28. But I can give you a great opportunity, a really great work environment, and you can actually be a part of helping build something instead of just being a minion pushing numbers and crunching things. And people liked that. They wanted that. They appreciated the honesty, and they appreciated being able to work at an exciting startup. And so it was hard to recruit, but I found just being honest and sharing your values and your mission with people allowed them to trust in you and you to trust in them.
I think that's a huge point. When I first started off my own law practice, and I remember having lunch with one of my clients that is a true entrepreneur and started a business from scratch that is now, does upwards of $40 million a year. And I remember bouncing some ideas off of him, and I said, hey, I really need to get some help. I need to get somebody in there who's an assistant and somebody who can help me with the day-to-day. But I said, I can't afford to pay what they're worth. And he said to me the exact thing you just said. He said, listen, Josh, you have to sell people on your vision. And if you find the right person and can sell them on your vision, they're going to buy into you and not into the actual paycheck, because they're going to see the potential upside of it. And I had actually never thought about that. And that's exactly what I've been trying to do. And it is amazing if you can find those people that buy into your vision. I mean, that's the most valuable worker, employee, person that you can find.
Absolutely.
So
you can trust them. You know, they're making sacrifices for you. You're making sacrifices for them. It's a mutual relationship. You know, even today, I learned from that learning experience then to fast forward to a larger company now, where we have great transparency in our business. We have what we call a scorecard, where we have all of our key core metrics as a business, from number of leads generated to our EBITDA to number of clients under management. Important metrics, right? Well, most of our company can see those live metrics on a weekly basis in a scorecard document that we share with everybody. It shows the health of our organization. And there are some benchmarks to determine if things are going good or bad. And by allowing people in, they feel they're a part of something instead of just working for somebody. And when they feel like they're a part of somebody, they become very loyal to the business. They feel like they're building something too with it, which they are. And you know what? Later, these honest conversations, these value-driven hirees, they stick around. In fact, 130 people, I have 133 people, and I've only had 4 people turn over in 6.5 years. And all of them were people who were fired. They were maybe hired incorrectly, but no one has ever quit. And that is something that we're really proud of. We think we got a great culture, and it kind of started when you were young, because it does. A business that still has its founders often presents or has the core values of its founder. And when my values were modest and humble, and I was starting this business and I needed some help, and we kept that throughout this business as we grew, that's still there, and that core values are still there. We hire people that are like-minded, and we have a really passionate crew that's really young and very loyal to our business. So it all starts where you plant that seed, and then so long as you take that culture with you as you grow and scale, that's how you can keep a really great workforce and a loyal workforce.
Well, I love the scorecard culture because it's a whole adage that, you know, business is a game, and who likes to play a game where you don't keep score, right? So if it's a game of business and everybody who's involved knows the score, they're more likely to be interested in the ultimate outcome. So I think that's fantastic. I'm finding a lot of companies are finding great success with having that open management style and open numbers style, and just laying it all out there.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people falsely believe that just because a company is bringing in a lot of revenue that they're making a lot of profit. And there's other aspects that are false assumptions that really get laid to bed when you are open in the management of the company. Well, I want to move, because I know we're running short on time. I want to definitely dive into the franchise aspect of your business. And there are many people listening that are contemplating the franchise model as a means for growth. You know, they've had some success in their business. Maybe they're operating 1 or 2 locations, and now they're trying to strategize and think, you know, is franchising a growth model that I want to utilize in my business? Would you mind taking us through the process you went through and provide some thoughts and insight into that process?
Well, as a franchisor, I had this mindset. How can I expand nationwide and help other entrepreneurs duplicate and replicate my success that will also enhance my very own success by allowing people to borrow my experience, my knowledge, and my brand and proven process and system? And that led me to franchising. It's a capital efficient way for me to expand. It allows other real estate passionate entrepreneurs to start their own business and treat it as if it was their own. It also allowed me to have greater success as a business, to push my brand across the country, would allow us to have larger yields. And not only that, in property management, it's all about, residual recurring revenue. As a franchisor, I was able to create a residual recurring revenue in the form of long-term royalties. So from a franchisor's perspective, it provides a win-win between franchisee and franchisor. The franchisee will often have less barriers to entry. He'll have economies of scale from working with a franchisor. Instead of having to prove a system works, he's working with proven systems, proven processes, proven concepts. So instead of reinventing the wheel, you get to borrow somebody's invented wheel that perhaps hasn't been seen by everybody, and you get to take it to market. Franchising is really capital efficient for both parties too. And so it's a win-win. Whenever there's a win-win relationship, there's usually good business to be had. And a franchisor is a lifetime partner to the franchisee. So you often get big corporate to be your partner, but only as much as you want them to help you. Otherwise, it's your business, it's your brand, you're part of the family now. And so long as you don't harm the brand, you get to run that business as you see fit. And you get a jump start. You have a shorter learning curve. You'll be more capital efficient. Odds are you're going to be more successful. And when we did the property management space, we call ourselves professional landlords. We help everyday people to rent and manage their residential real estate. Well, there's not a lot of professional landlords out there. There's a lot of mom and pops out there that are very unsophisticated. They don't have proven processes, and they just don't have much of a value proposition either. If there's somebody out there that's real estate passionate and is like a real estate broker or just likes the real estate business, buying a Renters Warehouse franchise is a great opportunity because you have this turnkey system. You have this wonderful value proposition I haven't shared yet. We have, it's capital efficient. You get to walk into something that's working great. You get to try a prime market. Those that adopt a franchise today, I only have 13 franchises open. So that means there's lots of major markets open. A guy could come along and be the first. Imagine if you were the first Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks in Seattle or California. They're doing very well. There's risk and reward for being an early adopter, and I believe strongly in franchising. I've been a franchisee myself with other businesses, and I'm a franchisor of 2 businesses. So I'm a huge proponent of it. In fact, I just bought a commercial real estate building in my hometown. And I'm trying to find a little restaurant or some sort of modest real estate franchise I can put in the strip mall there. Rather than start my own thing, which I'm a seasoned entrepreneur and I could do that, I like the sounds of a franchise concept. It's quick, it's turnkey, it's going to be successful. And so I couldn't tell you how I'm a huge believer of the franchise model and system.
Well, take us through the day-to-day operations of Renters Warehouse. I mean, you now have, you said 13 locations. And I imagine, a challenge is making sure that all your locations are operating in a consistent manner and providing that excellent experience to not only for the customer, but for your franchisees, which, as they say, or as Michael Gerber would say, your franchisees are now your customers from the franchisor side. So take us through that and tell us how you make all that work and what kind of processes and systems you've put in place to make that happen.
Well, from a franchisor to a franchisee standpoint, we gave them a proven process, a proven concept, a proven system. And some of those systems are reputation management, tools and resources or software to scale the business, to make them more efficient. And so our biggest thing is the onboarding process. When you start with us, we really give you a great set of tools and software that are going to make you good and efficient and accountable right out the gate. And then we just make sure to support and train them if they have questions or comments or challenges they may be facing. If they're, as a smaller company, it's hard to, wear so many hats because you got 10 jobs but only 3 people to do them. And so you got to kind of be multi-focused. You got to be a good multitasker. And we're constantly creating efficiencies for them to do more with less through technology. So oftentimes my day will be webinars, support and training our franchisees, making sure that they have new advertising materials, updated website. They have a clear understanding of the value proposition. Their contracts are in good shape. You kind of got Big Brother always looking over for you. When you own a franchise, you got somebody working on the business. That's your franchisor, while you, the franchisee, are working in your business. And normally as an entrepreneur, you have to do both. You have to work on and in. While as a franchisee, you don't have to work on your business so much because the franchisor is going to innovate oftentimes for you. They're going to come up with the next big thing. They're going to prove processes and systems and then roll them out to you. At least in operations like mine, where I still operate a corporate office myself. Meaning I didn't just start out and say I'm going to be a franchisor as my job. I built a successful property management company, kept that, then started a franchise arm of our business. So I'm actually doing just what you're doing, just at a larger scale. And so as I learn things as a property manager myself, I'm passing that down or cascading that message down to my franchisees on, hey, here's a best practice. Here's how you avoid a pitfall. And so most of my day is support and training and making sure that our franchisees are poised and able to succeed.
How's that been for you, managing those two roles? Because I often, when I counsel people, a lot of things people don't think about when they turn their business into a franchise is you as the entrepreneur, your role changes. And so obviously you still have a corporate-owned location, but then as you indicated, I mean, you're clearly trying to make the process and systems more efficient and looking at things from the franchisor side and how can I make the experience not only better for the franchisees, but more profitable for the franchisees so that the entire system profits from it. How has that been for you in sort of those dual roles?
Well, just like I mentioned, a franchisor works on the business and a franchisee is kind of in. As the chairman of the board and the founder of the business, I'm no longer the CEO. In 6.5 years, the success of my corporate office has afforded me the ability to retire at the age of 28. And I took that option. I retired last year, October, and I do not run the operations of my business. While I am the chairman of the board, I don't have day-to-day obligations anymore. The only obligations or the only thing I have is I still carry my cell phone around, that every one of my franchisees has my cell phone number, and they know that I'll take their call anytime for any question because they're a member of the family. They're a reason why I'm able to stay retired, and I would like to stay retired forever, and I'd like for them to be retired in 6 or 7 years as I've done it. And so I'm going to help them hit their goal. They're helping me stay in my goal. And so my job has been really cool. I've empowered other people to run my businesses while I work on my business just from an innovative standpoint. At my business, I give myself, I'm the chief visionary officer. My job is to dream up big ideas and determine what big idea we're going to pursue or what innovation we're going to pursue or what acquisitions we're going to do. But then I have an integrator who's my CEO who's in charge of actually doing it. He's the guy that, okay, here's your idea. Now he's the doer. He's the get it done guy. And so for me, that's what I'm able to do. It was hard. Damn, it was hard, Josh. Switching from the founder of the business and everything's in your name and the business is almost like a reflection of you to having to move on to phase 2 in your business, because a business isn't a business if it's just your business. Meaning if it's a Josh Brown business, meaning if Josh Brown got hit by a bus tomorrow, would your business go on? Maybe, maybe not. I know my business would go on if I got hit by a bus tomorrow because of the systems and processes I have in place. That's part of the value of why you buy my system, because I'll teach you how to do that. But that's what I'm doing. So my day is a little different than you might expect.
Well, tell us, so what are you looking for in a franchisee, and I mean your ideal franchisee? If you could categorize sort of you talked a little bit about it, but maybe go into some more detail in sort of who you're looking for and what sort of opportunities are out there.
Well, I want a tech-savvy, real estate passionate, entrepreneurial-minded individual. And a really ideal candidate's got some sort of background or experience in real estate, Maybe they're a real estate broker, a real estate agent, or a mortgage guy, or an appraiser, something like that that's closely related. I also want somebody that wants to strive for excellence, not just create a job, not just create an income and be satisfied with, $100,000 a year. I want a future millionaire, billionaire candidate. I want somebody who wants to be the biggest operation in his town. He wants to be the most successful, accredited, and reviewed property manager in his market. He wants to be respected for the work that he's done. He's hungry and very passionate about these things and very goal-driven, very analytical-driven. That, to me, is an ideal candidate. I've turned down over 40 candidates because I didn't think they were great. And those that I have brought in, the candidates I have now are exactly that. They're hungry, they're tenacious, they're resourceful, they're entrepreneurial-minded, and they really love real estate.
Well, I love that, Brenton, because, so often there's young franchisors that in the haste of wanting to try to grow, they outgrow their systems, they outpace themselves, and they end up having to do so because as they get bigger, they now have to feed that beast, and they get away from what their core values are. And it sounds like you're really, really focused on finding that right franchisee, which is huge in franchising. I mean,
we use a tool, actually. It's funny you mentioned core values. We use a tool called the People Analyzer tool when we identify candidates we think are good. And that's where we kind of line up our company's core values at the top and the person's name on the left. And we ask them kind of weird, funny questions to try and get at who the person really is. What kind of values do they possess? What motivates them? What unmotivates them? And then we use kind of a plus minus or a plus minus marking. And then we look at that candidate and there's a scoring mechanism that goes with it that determines does this person possess enough of our core values to be a member of our family, our team. And so it is big about that. You got to know what you want. It was a good question you asked. What's your ideal candidate? Most franchisees would say anybody with money. Well, no, it's not. I have an internal goal that I never want any one of my franchisees to fail. So I don't want any of them to close, which still remains true today. And I want every one of my franchisees to be net positive profit-wise their first year in business. And today that still remains true. So it is important to me that streak, like Cal Ripken's number of games he played, that streak does not end, and it does not end until it's legendary. And for me, it starts with every candidate being specifically and comprehensively reviewed to make sure that they're going to be successful. I have an obligation as a franchisor. If I'm going to accept your money, if I'm going to accept me taking the time to answer your cell phone call on Sunday while I'm in Tahiti, I want to know you're worth it. And so if that's who I approve, somebody who I believe in and is worth it, and they think the same about us.
Well, I love everything you're saying, Brenton. And where can somebody get a hold of you or get a hold of your company to find out more information?
Well, I stay really active on Twitter and LinkedIn. My Twitter's at Brenton Hayden. My LinkedIn is just search my name, Brenton Hayden. There, you'll find me there. That's where you can engage with me personally. If you want to learn about my business and the business opportunity we have, go to professionallandlords.com. That's professionallandlords.com. Or if you just want to see what an operation looks like when you scale it up, go to twincities.renterswarehouse.com. There you can see the second largest property management brokerage in the country and what it looks like and all the listings and the services and the value proposition that corporate that I still own. And that's the big picture of where somebody would like to go that can retire you in 6 years.
Well, thank you so much, Brenton, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to share your thoughts and experiences with me and the audience. And I really, truly appreciate it. You provided some great insight, and certainly look forward to staying in touch and hearing about your future successes.
Oh, the feeling is completely mutual. Appreciate what you're doing. This is really great. A podcast, interviewing entrepreneurs for best practices, and specifically in the franchise space. Kudos to you. I wish more people would do that. And if the opportunity existed, Josh, I'd love to be a regular guest for you.
Yeah, I'd love to have you back on. And it's funny, when I decided to do this, when I searched around in podcasts, I was just blown away that there's virtually no podcasts on franchising. And, the ones that I heard were just more legal related information, which is fine. I'm an attorney. I'm a franchise attorney. But I wanted to do it from the perspective of, how's it, there's so much information out there, so much misinformation on franchising. And when it's done right, when it's done in the way that you speak of, and when it's done from the perspective of the franchisor and the franchisee working together, that's when the magic happens. That's when real good partnerships are formed. And yet there's so many bad ones out there. And so I really just wanted to create this to provide insight and help educate people so they don't waste their money on bad franchises.
Well, that's easy to do. And, I always recommend that anybody interested in buying a franchise, that they do get representation by a good, and not just a lawyer, but a franchise experienced lawyer. Because I'll tell you what, my franchise agreement is 160 pages long. You need to know what's in there and what that lifelong relationship that you're about to sign on the dotted line means and the implications. And that's a long-term partnership with the company, the franchisor and the franchisee, and everybody needs to be in the know and be on the same page. And so, if you're going to buy a franchise and you do it without an attorney, frankly, you're starting off already at a disadvantage. So make sure that you use a guy like yourself, or you find a franchise experienced attorney. It's one message I'd like to leave for your audience.
Well, no, I appreciate that, because it's one thing hearing that from an attorney, but obviously hearing it from someone like yourselves. I mean, like yourself, the good franchisors always want their franchisees to get good legal advice, because you're tying into a long-term relationship. That's
Josh,
great.
We require that they have representation before they sign, and two, I can't tell you how much I rely on my counsel that's specific in franchising for all the things that we do in franchising. It goes both ways. You got to have representation. You can't figure it out on your own. You're going to miss something, and that one thing is worth the legal fees that go into it, and making sure you start off on a great footing.
Absolutely, and I feel like you and I could talk for quite some time. So I'll definitely reach out to you maybe third quarter this year or last quarter. We can get you back on again to talk about more specifics. Great information, and just thanks again, Brenton. Really appreciate it.
Real pleasure, Josh. Thanks, Sue.
Thanks for being with us today on the Franchise Euphoria podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to go to iTunes and provide a review. Also, please remember that although Josh Brown is a licensed and practicing attorney, nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as legal advice, because it is not. The information contained in this podcast is general and educational in nature, and none of it should be relied upon as legal advice. That being said, if you have questions for Josh and would like to contact him, please email him at josh@franchiseeuphoria.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you tune in to our next weekly episode.